Everyone's asking, is AI going to take my job? Wrong question. If you're a marketer, if you're in digital marketing, I'm going to show you how you keep your head above water and not be constantly distracted by all the latest things in AI. What are the things that remain as AI gets progressively smarter and better and more intelligent? In today's episode in The Marketing Mechanic, you're going to have a clear roadmap to how to survive in the next 3 years, and the changes that are happening, you're not going to be caught off guard. So you have an aquarium and the water level is rising. And if you imagine a few years ago, when ChatGPT first came out, their water level was kind of low. And you could think of it as like simple stuff. Photo recognition, sorting, categorization, basic copywriting. So those folks who were virtual assistants, who were doing very simple mechanical things, they were barely keeping their head above water. I look at tools that we used to use like Yoast or All-in-One SEO or Link Whisper, which last week's video was on, and those tools did great mechanical things because Link Whisper, for example, would look across all the content. If you had a site with 1,000 different blog posts, figure out, well, this part of this site could link to this part using this keyword, and you would rearrange the tags and categories. And this is mechanical VA level work, someone that you'd hire on Fiverr, data entry kind of stuff, very simple. But as the water level starts to rise, you have what I call level 1 mechanical work. Mechanical meaning it's rules driven. And the majority of things that you would do inside Google Ads or local service ads, or not just ads, but like WordPress, editing content would be very basic level 1 mechanical work. And thus these VAs who would do things that were maybe not worth automating, like fine, you pay them $3 an hour, $4 an hour, which was the whole idea when we've been in the Philippines and in Pakistan and meeting with the leaders of those countries on how we can build these programs. But as the water level gets higher, then these guys are now drowning. And there's no need for that. Because I remember we were hiring, like even in our sock factory, which if you got a pair of socks from us, Brennan was paying, I think, $1.80 per hour. And people would submit their photos and then we would resize them and edit them and put them on a pair of socks and actually ship them out. And that was something that we couldn't quite, at the time, build software to do. So we had 300 VAs from the Philippines making $1.80 an hour doing that. But now you have software to do that. So there's no more $3 to $5 an hour VAs. Then you have level 2. And by the way, these levels are what we actually have been paying people over the last 20 some years. You'll see we have a 9-level system. There are real skills that correspond, tasks that correspond to each of these. So this is not like a theoretical framework. This is real work that is now being replaced by the AI. So I consider this expert. So what is it that makes expert work? It's things that have multiple steps that are chained together. It requires some level of reasoning and interpretation, some reference back to context. So don't just mechanically do this task. It requires an understanding of that client's goals, content, and targeting. Or in the case of why Link Whisper is dead, it requires understanding of other sites instead of just linking within one particular website. Or maybe it's things like ad optimization. Well, why can't that be done mechanically? Because you could just bid up and down based on CTR and cost per acquisition and lifetime value, maximizing profit. Yes, but there's the context of the creative. There's seasonality. There's what the competitors are doing. There are changes in your sales performance and how well you close, or what's going on in the market, PE coming in and jacking up the prices. There's other, where context is more important to be able to take an action, and where different agents are chained together into an SOP. That's what you saw last year. 2026, where this is where people are really starting to freak out. This is the agentic AI. And everything you've seen about agents, even Google finally reluctantly released their agents, which they've had for several years, but they didn't want to release. We talked to our friends at Google and they'll tell you all about it. But what is an agent doing? An agent is doing the same thing an expert would do, except now it not only has the context that's feeding in, but it also has the access. And this is access to answer the phone, access to spend money on the credit card, access to do things that you and I might do through a laptop. And this is where most agencies, well, if you take the ones that are offshore, that are all about, yeah, we do stuff for only, $8 an hour or whatever it is, we answer the phone. These were like what the Filipinos and the Pakistanis would do. They're down here, they're already drowning, right? If you look at American agencies, this is where like the Josh Crouches and Lane Hooks and the other people, where they're good at selling, but if you look at the actual delivery, it's mechanical. It's mechanical plus a layer of like account management, but that's just lipstick on top of hiding the fact that when you audit the work, which AI can now do the auditing, so you guys can't hide anymore. If you're a digital marketing agency and you don't like me because I turned the light on in the room, don't blame me. Don't blame the light, blame the fact that you're fat, right? Or whatever the issue is, right? It's not my fault. We just turned the light on. We put the scale there. Don't get mad at the scale. So now that everything can be visible, transparent, you can audit what's going on. You can see the actions. You can log into the change history. You can look at the call rail. The AI can listen to the calls as well as take the calls. Now with agent mode, what really is going on? So I see folks who are just above the water. Their feet are getting wet. And they're saying, well, I've built a team of agents that are doing a lot of this work, but we still manage the strategy. Because clients who are spending, a $20 million a year HVAC company, they don't mind spending $20,000 a month to know that, then they're even cool with the fact that agents are doing this kind of work, right? Because they trust that relationship. They're willing to pay a premium. They don't want to have to learn the ins and outs as all these things are changing. But one thing the agent can't do, and this is where it starts to get really interesting, are these relationship assets. So what are these assets that cause you to be able to be up here? What are the things that the AI can't do? I just had Eric Huberman, who has the world's largest and fastest growing digital agency. He did $700 million this past year, bought 23 agencies. It's so funny because so many of these guys that are doing marketing or things that can be done through a laptop, lawyers too, accountants, tax professionals, right? These guys are all drowning. I mean, I got sued like 7 times this last year, and I did it all pro se and won every one of those cases because, well, of course, you have to look at the output. And I have a friend who's a lawyer who looked at it as well. But, this stuff here, you're not going to beat the AI at chess. You're not going to beat the AI at optimizing for SEO, which is really just a set of mechanical items that can be made complex. But really, when there's a set of rules, like if you think about digital marketing, because the rules are set in how Google works, the rules are set in how the ecosystem on Facebook or TikTok ads or LinkedIn lead gen or local service ads, the frameworks in how those ecosystems operate are set. Therefore, there's only a certain way that you can maneuver. Like basically you can adjust your content and you could adjust what happens to a lead. So if your speed to lead is higher and you're better at closing and everything else is the same, where you don't have an advantage in building ad campaigns, you don't have an advantage in a faster website, you don't have an advantage in being able to get more reviews or whatever it might be, then what is this particular asset? And this is the thing that everyone's missing in AI. Even the people that think that they are AI pros. And this green marker died, so we'll use red. Well, as your business, as a service-based business where you're trying to distinguish between all the other plumbers in Philadelphia, between all the other landscapers in Bloomington, If everyone else can use AI to generate the 10 ways on how to keep your lawn clean and green, right? How do you tell if your water heater, what's it going to cost to replace the damage on the roof from the hailstorm? Like, you can't beat, like no one has an advantage over being able to crank that kind of stuff out. But the advantage is the true proof and the assets from relationships. So the thing that will cause the smart people to rise up here is what we call GCT, which are specific assets. That means specific goals, content, and targeting. So stories, relationships that are made visible. As your crews are going about, we met with Hippo Roof today. And they have 600 some reviews. They've done 10,000 jobs. And they've done a good job. They rank in Google Maps, but their website ranks on 22 keywords because they haven't used digital as a reflecting mirror of what they have that are real assets. So when you have these real assets and you use these AI agents to repurpose it to LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all the different sorts of channels, like chop it up to be able to put on your Google My Business, put it in all these different places, build out the entity strength, right? Part of the whole knowledge graph that Google has, or to be referenced by ChatGPT to make a recommendation. This is really, you're using, the irony is that let me put it this way. All right, so we're here right now at the agent phase, right? So anyone below here, they're drowning. Everyone above here, they're winning. And this is the weird dichotomy on who's winning and who's losing. So I look at folks like Eric Huberman, Eric H., and his agency is growing faster than ever. He's hiring people. He's doing the exact opposite of all these other agencies that can't seem to find clients because all these other clients are like, I fired my agency and I had my son do ChatGPT, right? Well, good luck with that, right? But it's actually better than what most agencies would do. They don't want to admit that. Oh no, our stuff's really complicated. You wouldn't want to try to, yeah, well, what were you actually doing? We audited your stuff and found logged into your ad account and found that you haven't made any changes in the last 3 months anyway, so what matters, right? But Eric is able to grow because he has so much reputation. He has so much strength on the strategy side, so many relationships that of all the agencies that he has, so he'll buy a struggling agency and pull them up here, where he has centralized power in software that they're building, in operations, in website building, in ads, and all these other areas. So he's pulling these other areas, these other guys up who are drowning and making more money. And what's really cool is that you have people like him who are constantly moving up. It's one of those like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And then, I'm not going to name names, but you see some people here who are, they just can't keep up, right? Or they're pretending, or their head's in the sand like an ostrich, and they don't have that reputation. I think of AI as just a reputation multiplier. That's really what it is. It's not a technical thing. I look at other friends of mine like Tom Shipley, who runs DealCon, and arguably he's not an AI guy, but he's done so much in M&A because as these other businesses are struggling, especially digital businesses are struggling, there's opportunities for these guys to buy out these other folks. So just in the last 2 months, the number of agencies that have reached out to me saying, hey, I want to be able to exit, right? Because I don't know if I'll have a business in a couple of years, or I'm burnt out from the whole client service kind of thing. What I think is going to happen, if you made it to this point, here's the main point that I think as it relates to digital marketing. I don't think most digital marketers will be able to operate as they are in a year from now. And even Elon Musk said that white-collar jobs will be mostly done within a year. And white-collar jobs will be eliminated before blue-collar jobs. And it's not just the programmers. You see all this stuff where Facebook and Google and all these guys are laying off a third of their workforce, that kind of thing. That extends gradually as this water level goes. It's not like yes or no, I keep my job. It's to what degree my job is gradually being absorbed by agents that are getting better and better, So when the water level gets up to here, if you're doing marketing, do you have something that will push you up above here? And this is why folks like Lance Bachman, who ran One SEO, why he sold One SEO, the world's the largest SEO company. He sold and started buying roofing companies because level 5 is physical. That's why Jensen Huang says there's a boom in the trades. Like, I'd become a plumber because it's going to be a while before the Optimus robot is fixing running a snaker in a 1970s ranch house, right? So that's going to be a while. So if physical becomes more important because these other items are being kind of commodified, then how do you, whether you're a home service business owner or you were a digital marketer or AI entrepreneur, how do you move from assets, like relationships assets, into physical assets? I think that to make that jump, you're going to do things like, to increase the power of these GCT assets, things that the AI can't generate, you're going to do real world things. So you're going to meet people in person for podcasts. You're going to meet them for meals. You're going to take what's in your phone, like in your Google Photos or Apple Photos, and you're going to give that, all these assets, you're going to give that over to these agents, and the agents will magnify the power of the assets. That is what pulls you up above this line. I know this sounds sort of like esoteric or theoretical, but I've been thinking about this for the last 20 years. And I knew this day was coming. I thought it would maybe it'd be another year or two out, but I am preparing for digital agencies to not exist in their current form in a year from now. Because I've personally seen the work that I have done. Like, I've written a lot of code in my career, and none of us write any code anymore. Very few of us are actually optimizing ad accounts. Like Daniel Goodrich is our top guy for ads. He's been with us for 12 years or so. And I told him, I know, Daniel, you have built a career in our company doing digital plumbing, setting up Tag Manager, the container that has all the pixels and the event tracking and all this technical stuff, all the data, offline conversions that get passed back to Google and Facebook, all that kind of stuff, which other people don't know how to do because it's complicated. But you need to automate yourself out of a job. So even he's created agents. Anyone that we know that is good, we've told them to agentify themselves. That means Daniel on our team, we can have 10 Daniels. How awesome is that, right? And we can pay him, maybe not 10 times more, but we'll pay him twice as much, right? But if you have one of these people here that does a mechanical task, unfortunately, using a tool to edit video or do something that doesn't require physical relationships or doesn't require deeper context, those people they're done. So you may have seen the announcement that we made where we said here that we are now starting all of our people, I don't care what country they're at, $22 an hour. Which you might say, well, in America, that's nothing. In-N-Out pays $22 an hour. Yeah, but we were at $10 and $15 and whatnot at these different levels, right? You could see what our leveling system was, but the reason why we say the minimum now is 22 is that everything down here can be done by agents. We don't need humans to do that. And I predict in a year and a half from now, maybe summer 2027, I think that we should be able to pay $50 an hour or more. Because everything underneath that line, you don't need a human to do. Because the agent will work for tokens. The agent will do it faster and cheaper and better. And so we are actually accelerating that because any of these A players that are up here that do great work, you have there's only so many Eric Hubermans or people like me that do a Dan Liebrandt or Marco Cipolla or George Palatichuk, or these people are so awesome. These are the ones you want to replicate into agents. Because why wouldn't I want to have 10 more media buyers that are like Marco or George, who knows how to build AI call centers, right? I want to multiply that by 10. But if I'm multiplying George or Marco or these other folks by 10, and building clone agents down here, what does it say for the other people that are like B-level copywriters, B-level marketers, B-level in whatever aspect of electronic, like non-physical, like work through the laptop, white collar kind of work? It means that you only need a few people who are really good. A friend of mine, Peter Elahauge, he was the engineer at Yahoo, and he wrote the code for type ahead search results. You know, you type something and it kind of predicts what the rest of the things are. Like, you don't need 1,000 engineers. You just needed that one guy. And our other Peter at Google was the one who created Gmail. Like, how many of you guys are using Gmail? That's one guy who made Gmail. Now, how many other people have built mail programs? How many other people technically could have built a Gmail? He built it in his spare time. But the beauty is that you just needed one guy. And I don't know how many people use Gmail. 500 million, 1 billion people using Gmail. There's so much power. That's why you see in Silicon Valley, some of these people that are superstars are being offered $100 million paychecks. Not just because of this AI bubble, and there's just like funny money, and it's this circular Ponzi scheme of money going from NVIDIA to OpenAI to, you know, whatever, these other companies. It's because these people are worth more because the agents are able to multiply. So think, for your business, what is that one thing that is world-class, that is your key distinction, that is core to your strategy, which is your GCT, which is how you differentiate. Your strategy is how you do things differently, a particular goal in a particular way for a particular niche. And then it's easy to agentify that because you document everything. So we've accelerated that for us, knowing this is coming rather than wait and then having to react. Everything that we've done, we have published them to the web. Initially, we published them 2 years ago as custom GPTs, because then you'd have to use our agents, and then, you know, only our agents had this because it was our intellectual property. It was how we did stuff, which is IP. But I said, you know what? We only got 1.5 years maybe of this. And, you know, nonprofits and the government and what, like, those guys are slower, but in general, right? In about 1 year, 1.5 years. Why don't we just accelerate this and take everything that we know? So literally just 20 minutes ago, I was with one of our AI apprentices and showing him how to set up Claude Cowork and setting up agents to do stuff. And we were working on some website stuff. And instead of him downloading our batch of skill.md files, so the markdown files, which are basically say, here's how the agents operate, we already published those to blitzmetrics.com across our entire task library with the markdown files already included there publicly for anyone to be able to get. So then he spoke to Claude, which is how we talk to our agents, just like humans, and he said, go ahead and make this website change and then publish these articles, like repurpose these YouTube videos according to the Blitz Metrics blog guidelines, and then how we QA. Make sure you QA your work, and then publish a meta article, which is our documentation. Agents have to write documentation on how they did the work, just like VAs would have to submit their end of day reports. These agents are VA-like, so we have them document their stuff, and then other agents can come in and QA their work, which is kind of fun. And people who are really into it, you'll hear them say, yeah, we have Claude do the work, and then we have ChatGPT come in and audit, because it's better at auditing. But if you have ChatGPT do the work, it's kind of lazy, and it lies to you, because it's like Sam Altman, whatever. Sam Altman, don't sue me, right? So you have this checks and balances, right? Like the, you know, legislative, judicial, executive branch, that kind of thing. And we have found that literally speaking your directions, some people call it prompts, but I will talk for a couple minutes and give it all this context on what's going on, and then I will reference. So if you watch our videos where I'm actually doing, this is a whiteboard video where I'm showing you the framework, but if you see the ones where I'm on the laptop and whatnot, watch how I give these commands. And they're very specific. Not in terms of like, do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, that's already here in the SOPs. I'm referencing SOPs, particular SOPs. I'm referencing the 4-stage, do this according to the 4-stage content factory. Hey, you're running ads. We were with the roofing company this morning, and Ethan Vandehei, who runs a double-digit million roofing company in Wisconsin, said, yeah, I told the agent to run ad campaigns to drive remarketing and find more customers according to Dennis Yu's dollar a day strategy. And he logged in and he showed what his cost per lead was for all the different customers he's getting. And the agent was able to do it, not because it was role playing. So he's not saying, write copy as if you're like Dennis Yu. No, that's what most people do. But he said, according to the SOPs that Dennis has published on how they execute the dollar a day ad campaigns on Google and Facebook and whatnot. And it did, because then those agents, and this is called the query fan out, Google does the same kind of thing. When you ask the LLM or the search engine to go do something, and you give it the context saying, and the way the Blitz Metrics does repurposing of content, according to the article guidelines that Dennis Yu publishes, you'll see the AI will say, now researching Dennis Yu's blog guidelines or whatnot, right? And it'll come back with the whole list. And what we call the definitive article is how we do a particular task, which from Bot to Brain was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, the marketing, we do this every week on Thursday. And in that definitive article and how we do the task, we say these are the inputs, this is how you do it step by step, and here's the QA. So yes, you could say you did all these things, but now go through this checklist, QA, quality assurance, to make sure that you did it properly. So there's an extra layer of inspection, which can be done by that agent or done by another agent if it's a big task and you want multiple, multi-threaded, in parallel, multiple agents working at the same time, right? So I thought, well, if we wanted to win in the short run, like in the next year, we would just keep all this to ourselves. And we would have our community have access to these agents that we know work because we've been using this, and I've lost a lot of sleep because it's so exciting. Or we could look ahead to where things are truly autonomous, and then we know, like I'm looking at where things are going here. So level 6, this is autonomous. Autonomous is when the thing is doing it itself. So even if I try to play keep away and have a scarcity mindset with our SOPs and whatnot, if I've got the assets and these relationships, and I'm building relationships with the people that matter to me, which is why I'm meeting these people. I flew to Atlanta to hang out with Brad Strawbridge, right? There's people here that I really want to be associated with. I was with the billionaire 3 days ago, and I won't say his name because he's a very undercover, quiet billionaire, but I learned so much from him. That's why we flew out to see him. This is like we're all in Noah's Ark, right? You should build your ark of these other people that have reputation, have authority, have assets in terms of their business. This is why companies are rolling up into PE, like 10 HVAC companies or 10 digital agencies under Eric, or Cody Jones, where he's doing a roll-up in funeral homes, or Jeff Hughes is doing it in family law offices, because they know, not because there's strength in numbers, but because there's more reputation here to multiply. And across these other companies, because they have these components stronger, all these other companies that they acquire or buy get moved up here because this part gets them above the water so they're not drowning. So they don't just, like a lot of baby boomers, they just exit their business because they never really thought about valuation. They never cleaned up their books for due diligence. But I want you to think about this rising AI line. What does it mean for you? Where are you operating? If we take different components of your business, maybe you know that parts of your operations, there's no documentation and you're down here. Maybe a lot of your marketing, you're not even really sure. There's no accountability or SOPs or measurement or a heartbeat showing that there's work being done along the way. Like a lot of agencies are coming to us saying, hey, can you just implement your SEO and ads, that kind of stuff, right? We're really good at the client relationship stuff, but we really need help on this. Like, happy to, right? Because we've learned from these other people and we're making this stuff basically open source. Why not, right? It doesn't cost us anything. It's not like we're giving people money. It's when you give knowledge and whatnot, you don't lose your knowledge, right? If anything, it demonstrates as a standard, so it makes that standard worth even more. So think about the power of brand, about relationships, about what you can do. So instead of you jumping on the latest update of OpenClaw, you got to download this latest version to plug this vulnerability or whatever it is, and you're constantly distracted by the noise, what are you going to do to get yourself up here? You know the water level is going to come up here. What does that mean for you? I would love to hear. Let me know in the comments. I make these videos for you, so I'd love to hear what's on your mind. What are you doing? What are things that we should be talking about? What are tips that you want to be able to share? And if you find this helpful, it'd really be helpful if you left a comment or if you liked or subscribed. And I'm Dennis Yu, and I'll see you in the next episode.